Welcome to another episode of the Hospitality Mentor Podcast. And today I'm very excited about this one. We've got Fernando Rojas, partner of Agency BE. Fernando, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. What a pleasure to share the stage with you. I'm excited about being here. We've been following your brand for quite a while now. And, I'm just very grateful that you have us on the show and we can share our history and, a few exciting projects that we have on the book.
Now, we've got a lot of exciting things going on. And so I want to start just a little bit differently because we're going to come back to this. Can you talk to me about what you're currently working on? Because I want to build up to it. So, why don't you tell the world and the viewers about what you're currently working on?
Sure. So at Agency BE, we always have something exciting going on. We have multiple projects going on at the same time, but there's one in particular that we're very excited, and it's our travel show. It's World Travel Expo, WTE, the 2024 edition. This is our second edition of the show. It was started during the pandemic, so we couldn't really get off in those dates. But after the pandemic, we started getting the sponsors, we started getting the interest that we needed. And then now we're celebrating our second edition. We've got the support of the city. We've got some amazing exhibitors participating this year. We have a lot of registration for the show, and we have a great hosted buyer program. So all of that, I'm sure that we're going to get into that with greater detail
Yep.
later on. But that's the product that I'm most excited about right now.
And I'm honored that I get to become a strategic partner to WTE. I'm excited to be there with Tangy Management and the Hospitality Mentor brand. So if you're listening to this now, make sure to register, check out WTE because I would love to see you there. But let's start on this journey here, Fernando, right? Because it is something special you've created. And we've got to meet each other a couple times now and hear about your journey that I think is so unique. So let's talk a little bit about your background because you didn't just start in hospitality. You have a unique background. Why don't you give me a little bit about what you're doing, then how you found your way into hospitality?
Yeah, I was always interested in banking. That was my passion since I was, a lot of people discover their passions late in life. I discovered it really early when I was 5 years old. So I just knew I wanted to be a banker when I was five. My dad was always taking me with him, and he always, went to the bank. He had his own business, and I just fell in love with that. Um, but at the same time, I guess I was always in love with hospitality because, I started working for the bank. I graduated from high school, then I went on a swimming scholarship. I'm from Ecuador originally, so I had a swimming scholarship, and I came to school here in the U.S. To Georgia, and I studied finance and economics. So after that, I went back to Ecuador, and I worked for the bank that I had visited as a young boy. So like that is very interesting. You need to be curious and you need to have a vision because everything in my life has been about curiosity and about visualizing. So I always was very curious about going into different fields, into different areas, and then I just decided to visualize myself in those aspects, and that's why I got to the different places that my life journey has taken me. So in banking, I was very happy. It was amazing. I started as a forex trader, so very exciting, very dynamic, a lot of risk and reward financially. You get to make risks with other people's money, but the financial rewards are for the bank and for yourself. And while I was working at the bank, I got my MBA, so I got an executive MBA, and as part of that executive MBA, I just came up with the idea to open a chain of restaurants. So that was the business plan that I created while I was at business school and while I was working for the bank. So once I graduated from my MBA, I started that restaurant. And today, that restaurant is 25 years old. I don't own it anymore, but it started with a little idea from business school, and it was a steakhouse with a sports team. And that was my first foray into hospitality. So basically, my life was bank during the day and then restaurant during every single night from 5 onwards until midnight. And then the entire weekend I was stuck in the restaurant, but I love doing that, you know. So that's when I felt that hospitality was an area that I would be interested in exploring. That was like my curiosity about hospitality. That's it seems interesting.
Yes, 2
Um,
different worlds, right? So you're in the
Completely.
bank world, you envision this since you're a kid, you're playing with the money, I can envision you having all the, money with your family, and then you become to the bank, and I wanted to say this, I gotta practice my Spanish. Is that Grupo Financiero Banco Internacional? Is that where you're working?
That's
Right?
what that was the bank that I worked for, and they
So you
were
work at so you were there, but is it not what you envisioned for yourself? Was it not everything you dreamed of, or was it just
it
something?
was, you know, it was an amazing opportunity. The bank is spectacular. The culture itself is amazing. They were great employers. But you know, when I was working in Ecuador at that time, the situation was not the best for my particular industry. There were many financial institutions that were not doing well, so the entire financial system was shut down. And then after that, you know, only there were 40 banks and only 20 banks were allowed to come back. It was a very difficult situation. There was our national currency got wiped out, and we assumed the U.S. dollar as our national currency. So a lot of things happened, you know, that made me become a little bit disillusioned with banking in my country. You could say more than banking itself.
Mhm.
And again, the curiosity that I had led me to explore not in Ecuador, but in other areas of the world. And that's how I got to the UAE. So, you know, I started being very curious about other places where I could embark on my journey. And that's how I ended up in Abu Dhabi in the UAE. And
How does
I
that happen? Do you live in Ecuador? It's a very different world. Do you tell your family, like, "I got an opportunity in the UAE, I'm heading out."
that's exactly how it happened, man. Like I said, I'm a very curious guy and I'm an entrepreneur at the end of the day. So I'm not afraid of taking risks. And I just embark on the adventure that I think is going to lead me to you know, the best place at that point in my life. So
So what was it like there? Because I had a friend tell me, he lived in Abu Dhabi. He's like, "Oh, it was intoxicating. I loved it there," but he didn't stay there forever. What was it like for you? Because you were there for about 3 years.
well, it was amazing, and to tell you the truth, I would have lived there all my life. Yeah, even today, every time that I go back, I have a sense of belonging there. So yeah, I try to go back pretty much every year.
Wow.
I made great friends, local friends, which is difficult to achieve because you know my experience was a lot different than most expats. A lot of the expats they work for multinational companies, and that's how they end up there. In
Right.
my case, what I did is I went without a job, so I knew that I liked that country because I had been there on a vacation previously.
Mhm.
So you know what I did was even crazier because at that point in time I was recently married. So basically, 2 days after we got married, I told my ex-wife, you know what? You gotta trust me. We're moving to the UAE. And we left during the middle of the Gulf War. So there were many, many issues that were like
Uh,
so
I could
no
hear the father of the daughter, "You stole my daughter to the
yeah,
Middle
no,
East."
my in-laws were they were not that excited about that. So, you know, they in the middle of the Gulf War, two
Yep.
days after
We got
we
married.
got married with no job
No
prospect
job.
in the way, I just said, "You gotta trust me. We're gonna be okay." And she did, and we landed in Abu Dhabi. You know, it was 2 days after our wedding, and then we gave ourselves a time, a maximum amount of time. So we said 2 months. We have 2 months to find a job, and that's what we did. So we started, you know, networking and started applying for all the jobs that we could, and nothing for 1 month, nothing for a month and a half. And 1 week before we had to come back, we already booked our flight back. And one of the earliest interviews that I had turned out to become the job that made us stay. So I got a job with the government of Abu Dhabi with a think tank called the Emirates Center for Strategic Studies and Research. and it was amazing because culturally it's big. It's a huge difference.
Mhm.
I have a lot of respect for the Muslim religion, for the Arab world. They're amazing people. They're the most generous people that I've ever known, and it's a culture that I fell in love with, but there's a cultural shock, So I come from the Latin world, which is very machista.
Mhm.
So there, it's okay for men to hold hands, and it's okay for a couple of things like that. So it was a lot of fun. You need to be very respectful. Things that for us are very normal, like the first week of work. There was a friend, a colleague, I would say, that was celebrating the birth of his daughter at the office, and he just, people are so generous there. So whenever something happens to them, like a birth, or they buy a new house, or they're celebrating an important achievement, they just go all out and they invite everybody for a feast. So this person had brought, a real feast into the office, and it was my first week there. I was like, "What happened?" They're like, Kutaiba's daughter was born. So I approached this gentleman who it was like probably the second time that I had spoken to him, and I told him, "Thank you for your hospitality. By the way, how is your daughter?" So his eyes went on fire, and he started fuming. He wanted to beat me up. So I was like, you know what? I didn't mean any disrespect. And they had to hold him back. And they explained to him that I was new in the country, that I didn't know the culture. And basically, you cannot ask about a person's daughter because that means that you have intentions towards her, even though I was 30 years her senior. So it was, there were a lot of these funny stories. But at the end of the day,
It's
I
crazy.
yeah, I learned how to deal with them, and I just became great friends with all of them. And even now, I get to go on desert retreats with them. I'm the only foreigner. I'm the only non-Muslim and non-Arab, and that shows the respect that you can generate between cultures. And that again, it's curiosity, because if I wasn't that curious, I would have never been able to enjoy that culture, to experience the friendships that I have, and being able to stay. I've been hosted at their houses. So for a non-Muslim to be accepted into a Muslim household in a country that is traditional like the UAE, it means a lot. So I've traveled with them, I've lived with them in a very intimate way for the past, you could say, 25 years. So it's something that I am very thankful of. And the only reason I left is because, like I mentioned before, I own restaurants. So it was very difficult to be employed in the Emirates while at the same time running a restaurant. And that operation was very tiring. So after a few years, we decided to quit our life in the UAE and go back to manage the restaurants. And in between that, Miami got in the mix, and I got offered a job here, and that's how I ended up here 20 years ago. And you know what? It was the best thing, I guess. Again, it's all about visualizing yourself. When I was growing up, all my life I came to Miami, and I loved this city since the first time I came here. I guess I was like 3 years old when I first came to Miami, but ever since, I was always like looking forward to coming back on the next vacation. I used to come like at least twice a year, but I was like, I would love to live here. I would love to. And I would just say it and repeat it and repeat it, and that's where I ended up. And so I never expected that I would get a job offer in Miami, but it turned out that that's the place where I ended up.
So what was the job that brought you here, right? Because you said coming to Miami, you had never lived here. Again, you're moving from one place to a whole different country, right? With, I'm assuming your wife still at the time.
Correct. Yes.
So you come to Miami. What was that job? Was it in hospitality? Was it something that you were creating? How did that come up?
It was a combination of business and finance. So it was managing the holding company that had business interest in finance and telecommunications. And I was basically the right hand man of the founder. So it was very interesting, but at the same time, it made me realize that I was not meant to work for the corporate world anymore. So I wanted to be on my own. And the first week that I got here, I met my business partner. We met playing tennis. It was a coincidence.
Didn't know
Uh,
this person before?
Never knew him, and he's from Ecuador as well, but we had never met. So through a mutual friend, we were connected, and we just liked each other. And we had the idea to create Agency B. So it was again another another area where we just wanted to explore and see where life took us. So we just said maybe events are an interesting business, and that's how we.
That
That's how
was
we.
it? Was he
Yeah,
in events
he
before?
was funny. He sold flowers, so he had a business that imported flowers from Ecuador,
Mhm.
and because of that, he knew a lot of event companies that bought his product. So he said, you know what? Maybe it's interesting because a lot of event companies buy a lot of flowers, so there must be something there. So that's how we started. And the first year, we just what
I'm gonna pause you one more time because this is
yeah,
really interesting to me. Because I always love this spark of an idea that becomes something. So you're hanging out, playing tennis with a guy that's new to you, right? Because
yeah,
picking a partner in business is like a marriage,
correct.
right? So you're doing that. You have restaurants, but you didn't really do big events. So how does that conversation happen? Is it we're a couple of drinks, like, oh, we could do this, we could do it like this, and I'll contact these people. Is that started what happening?
Yeah. Well, I had never done an event. I don't even remember my wedding. You know,
Like signing the BEOs and making sure you get the review.
I had no idea. So when I was living in the UAE, um, my job was very interesting because I got to explore all the different industries in which the UAE had business interest. So basically, real estate, banking, everything related to the UAE's involvement, we had to explore. So one of those times I was exploring agriculture and flowers. And that's how I was like, I linked Ecuadorian flowers, which are very famous, and distribution in the UAE. So I created a business plan. And that's a company in itself that's ready to be launched, but I never undertook that project. So when I came to Miami, I met Alex and I told him, listen, you know what? I've got an idea. Maybe we can start selling flowers in the Middle East and I have a whole distribution system for the entire Gulf region. And I know how to market to them. I know how to collect from them. So why don't we do it? And then I started thinking about it and he said, Let's do it." But then I was like, "You know what? I like Miami, so I'm just gonna stay. Why don't we just do something here?" And he's like, "You know what? Why don't we start an event company?" And I was like, "Okay, that's it. That's as much as we spoke about it." So we're like, "Where do we start?" And then plurals were basically the entry point. It was like the easiest thing in an event because once you start getting into the event world, it's so complex because you have so many different aspects depending on where you get in. If it's from the strategic area, you've got marketing insights, then you have to deal with different areas like sourcing and then
Mhm.
production, creative, etc. So it's very complex. And but that itself is like an entire college career and a master's
Yeah, it's a
degree.
whole different one.
So we had no idea about anything. So it made sense to start with flowers. So what we did was basically we printed pictures of floral arrangement. I didn't even know what the name of a flower was. I just knew maybe like a rose, and then I went. You work for hotels, so I would knock on doors for like hotel managers, and I would ask them if they wanted to buy centerpieces from us, and if I could pitch for an event. I didn't even know how to do an event, but I was pitching, and everybody said no. So for a year, at least a year, we didn't sell a single penny. So it was very frustrating because I was hitting the street. I'm not kidding you, like 12 hours every day. Every day I just printed pictures and I just went, from door to door. And eventually we did make a sale, but like for one center.
For Valentine's
So
Day.
yeah, and believe it or not, what I did is I went to the warehouse where they sold the flowers. Then I put that box in my car I bought the floral bases. Then I took it to a floral designer who we found and waited at her place until she designed the floral arrangement. Then I took it and I delivered it myself. So that's how we started.
So let me ask because I'm gonna ask for advice later, but you work for a year on doing something. It's
yeah,
hard mentally. You're not gaining
it is.
ground.
It
What
is.
would you know a lot now, right? This is
Uh,
20 years ago. What would you have changed while you're hitting the streets? Because there's still a lot of people who are starting something up right now. They may be listening. Like, what's something you might have done a little bit differently? Like now you got a lot of technology and social media and stuff like that, but what would you have done a little differently?
I think we should have explored. I think we should have done a lot more research on what the event industry was. Yeah. Because it's
It's hard.
so vast. It's so vast, and it's not only the fact that there's a corporate area and a social area that both are immense.
Mhm.
You can be a very successful wedding planner and make millions of dollars, but within the corporate world, you've got an assortment of areas as well because you can be involved in meetings and events, but you can also be involved in conventions like we're starting
Yep.
to do ourselves, and you also have a lot of activations in the marketing world, which are very popular now. You've got all these experiences like the ice cream museum and the Messi experience and all of these. So we've delved in all of these areas. But when we started, it would have been very important, very helpful to do that research and identify which area of the events we wanted to get in
Yep.
because although we started with no knowledge, we had to go through that learning curve that we had to do events in the social world and events in the corporate world before deciding where we wanted to focus our company's efforts.
That's
So
true.
yeah, I mean, you need to be really prepared in order to make the move into an area. And we were very fortunate because we decided to go into events just by saying, let's go into events.
Yeah.
So we didn't have any information.
Which
We
sometimes
didn't,
better.
yeah, we didn't know what it was, how big it could get, uh, nothing. So the recommendation that you're asking, yes, be sure that you understand the industry that you're getting into as much as you can because there your learning curve is going to be a lot shorter. You're going to be able to be a lot more effective, and you can shorten the learning curve, which at the same time is going to give you a greater chance of survival because I was very fortunate that we had other sources of income coming in at the same time that allowed me to
Yeah.
to produce and be able to develop this company, this startup. But it was not easy. It was not easy at all.
I could hear that. A year of hitting the streets, so you start to gain ground. You get your first vase sold. And when does it start to kind of take off? When was it started to click? Because I know we talked before, like we know a lot of the same people. You're
So the
pitching
year was the
entrepreneurs.
year yeah, the year was 2007, man.
So a
And,
year later,
yeah, and, the Fontainebleau hotel was, being rebuilt. It was being redesigned, and, we had knocked on so many doors that we were invited to pitch for the core contract of the hotel, and, that opened the doors to the events as well. And, we pitched. We were one of the 16. There were 16 companies that were invited, and we won.
so how do you win, right? So little agency BE versus some of the mega shops out there. How did you get in there?
The good thing, remember that we had a corporate background,
Yeah,
and
which makes it hard.
that's the thing. You need to be curious, but you cannot be afraid. You can't be afraid if you're gonna be an entrepreneur. The last thing on your mind has to be risk aversion. You just need to go all out because the worst thing that could happen is that it doesn't work.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't, then you do something else, find another area, go back to what you were doing, whatever. But you cannot be afraid. So I had well over 10 years of corporate experience. I already had achieved a senior position in my previous job. And then I was not afraid. I was not afraid to be curious, and I just started hitting the streets every day. But you know what? Everything you do in life helps you. Everything, even if you think like, yeah, whatever, that's never gonna help me. That's never gonna come back. Everything you do helps you out. So all the planning that I have done in my previous banking career, in my previous job as a consultant in the UAE, they all worked so that we could create an amazing pitch. So we did not know too much about events and decor, but we knew how to communicate. We knew how to relate to executives at a very high level. And that made our pitch a lot more successful than the other company. So, it was a tough process, but we eventually got it. And that's what took our company, forward. And that's where our masters in event production, event management, and in general in the events world came because, you know, we're never afraid and we always say yes. So they asked us, can you do this? Yes. Can you do that? Yes. Yes, of course, of course. And I didn't know what they were talking about, but I just said yes. And we made it happen, and we made it happen in a very successful way because, you need to enjoy what you're doing. And as much as I enjoyed banking, when I discovered the events world, I just fell in love with it because it's so dynamic. It
Mhm.
involves so many different areas, because you're managing, you're um, you know,
Being
you're
creative,
you're you're
coordinating.
you're creating, you're creating, you're dealing with numbers. You're responsible for teams that need to work properly in order to meet a deadline, to structure a project, to deliver. So it's very exciting. But at the same time, you're always dealing with a demanding client. I've been doing this for close to 20 years. There hasn't been an easy client.
Yep.
No, there are no easy clients, so all of that, I'm very driven. So I like, intensity, and I love adrenaline. So this world worked for me. That's why,
Yeah.
in banking, I love the trading because that's like, I was always full of adrenaline. I was doing deals all day. And this is something very similar because the deadlines are unreal. So you're always scrambling to make the deadlines. You're always scrambling to recover from things that happen throughout an event. You
Yep.
can be extremely professional about planning, but there's always something that's gonna be unexpected. You cannot plan for a storm. You cannot plan for a disaster. You can plan for many things. So the important thing is that you have the experience to just stay calm, manage the relationship with the client, and just make out the best you can so that you have a lasting relationship with all your clients. and
It's
and
true.
uh, yeah, that's
And listener, I would tell you, if you're listening to this, it's because this is great advice. You should just rewind the last couple of minutes about what it takes to make it as an entrepreneur. I love all the things that you're saying here. And I just want to rewind before we fast forward. So I want to rewind. You get the Fontainebleau. We talked about this. You had past podcast guest Jeffrey Klein. It was at the Fontainebleau. Our friend John Rogers was at the Fontainebleau that you got to meet. So a lot of
yeah.
great people there. What was it like when you got that contract signed? Because I know that feeling when you get that first big one. What was it like for you when you saw Fontainebleau sign that agreement?
It was a great reward because after a year of drought, you know there was just
A flood.
yeah, a great amount of business that came our way. And when that hotel opened, it was incredible, because it was all about the experience. So people were checking in. There's over 1,500 rooms in that hotel, and they were all requesting floral arrangements. They were all requesting special gifts, VIP treatment, and we were in the middle of it. So we just said yes to everything, and we just made it happen. We had a very small team, and then we just had to scramble and call people
Yeah.
all over. We didn't have time to interview, to select. We just
Let's go. Make the
open the
phone.
doors,
Mm.
help us out, and make it happen while the opportunity was there. So we took advantage of that opportunity, and that allowed us to connect, like you said, with people like Jeff Klein, like John Rogers, who became great friends of ours. And after so many years, that hotel has changed so much. Our business model has changed a lot as we started evolving. Of course, we started focusing more on the relationships that we created with our clients. So the demands of our business changed completely. So when we started the company, our name was completely different, and that's a great story because the origin of the name. We started as Blooming Design and Events. That's the original name of the business because when we started the business, we had no idea, like I mentioned before, about events. We just knew that it was something that could be good, and we we didn't understand that there were corporate and social events. We just knew that there were events.
Events. Well, that's where the
Yeah,
B comes from, blooming
yeah,
events. All right, I got it now.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
I remember blooming events from my time at Lowe's and the other hotels.
Yes.
Perfect. Now it all connects.
So, bar mitzvah, yes. Wedding, yes. Corporate party, of course. Whatever, you're trying to survive.
Yeah, we're there.
You don't care.
Centerpieces, room service, whatever. We're there.
Linens, whatever, chairs, whatever. You're trying to make a sale because you're trying to survive the company. And
Mhm.
that's what it's about. So when you start achieving stability, when you're able to meet your payroll, when you're able to meet your operational costs, then you have a little bit of time to breathe and strategize. And our capability started changing a lot. They started evolving. We started focusing more on corporate clients, on helping with destination management, corporate events. So we changed the name to Blooming Events International. And then again, the evolution of the capabilities took us to marketing strategies, to digital content, and that's when we changed the name to Agency B, and that was about 10 years ago. So after that, we just started focusing on growing our corporate accounts and trying to work with them in different aspects of a corporate experience. So a corporate experience is vast, because you're dealing with an internal client and an external client, and everything in between we're doing. So product launches, training seminars, sales conferences, incentive trips, um, you know, even human resource campaigns, we get involved. And in addition to that, the experiential marketing activations, they deal with more of strategic marketing because you have to involve both digital marketing and execute at an experiential level. So it's very complex. And then we got into what we do now as well, which are meetings, like conventions, conferences, like World Travel Expo. And we've also invested a lot in other ventures, always related to events. For example, the Museum of Ice Cream. We created our own experience called the Wow Selfie Experience. Unfortunately, like I mentioned before, when you're an entrepreneur, you can't be afraid. You need to embark on a project and you need to take it to fruition. So we did that, but it happened right when the pandemic started. So our stores were closed. We opened two stores simultaneously. They were closed for, I would say, like 7 or 8 months. So we
Came
just
over.
decided to leave that there and focused on our event business.
So let's talk about that. So now you're starting to create your own events. Let's focus on WTE. Give me the rundown because this is something special that you're building. How does this start taking shape? Because you mentioned like you're putting on productions for other people. Now you're creating your own. How does this start to switch in your mind?
After 20 years in the business, we've seen pretty much everything from floral arrangements. We started getting all the way to the marketing and commercial strategy. So we had all the tools to invest in our own event. And, at the end of the day, we're entrepreneurs first and foremost. So, yes, we work in the event business, but we are entrepreneurs um, in our heart, and we always invest in projects that make sense for the company, for our bottom line. So, we saw an opportunity in the travel and tourism sector in Miami. We saw every city, every important city in the world has a travel show. So you look at Frankfurt, it has IMEX. You look at London, it has WTM. Mexico has one. Madrid has one. Paris has one. Las Vegas has one, and New York has one. So every city has a travel show because travel and tourism are always an important component of the economy of a city, of a state, of a country. And every single country count tourism as a major source of employment, as a major revenue generator for its citizens. So we saw that in Miami there were no travel shows before. Many years ago, there was a travel show that was hosted by the Miami Herald, and after a few years, when the Miami Herald started getting into financial problems, the show disappeared. So we saw an opportunity with my business partners, and we decided to act upon it. So with my business partners, we were able to convince the city to sponsor our event. And they really liked the idea. They saw that there was an opportunity because the field was open. There were no major shows. And that's how the Miami International Airport and the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau got interested in the show. Because, as an important airport, not only for the United States, but for the world in general at a global scale, Miami International Airport is one of the greatest airports. And they reach so many destinations around the world. So they want to promote all the destinations that you can fly out of MIA, because Miami is a very famous city now.
Mhm.
Whenever you travel, you tell people that you're from Miami, and
Wow. Yeah.
they're like, "Wow, you're from Miami," and so it's very appealing. So you don't need to advertise too much. People are coming into Miami, but there are many airlines, believe it or not, that they come with their flights full to Miami, but they leave empty because there isn't that much desire from the people in Miami to travel to these destinations. Like London, of course, no problem because people want to go to
Same.
London, Paris, Madrid, etc. But there are other lesser known cities and they don't have that traffic. So, it made sense, promote these destinations so that we can continue selling more frequencies, because at the end of the day, the success of Miami International Airport comes from the amount of destinations that you can fly, generating a higher traffic of passengers every single year. So I think with World Travel Expo, they saw that opportunity, and that's why they like the show so much. And then the GMCVV, of course, we're creating a show that will become a citywide event, because that's the direction that the show is taking. It's getting a lot of attention, and we're bringing delegations from all over the world. For this year, we are bringing delegations from as far as Japan. So there's a lot of companies that are coming from Asia, Japan, China, everything in between, India, um, the Middle East as well. There are a couple of companies that are coming from Egypt, from Saudi, from the UAE, and then from Europe, we've got a very significant presence from Spain, from Italy, from France, and all the rest of the countries. From Latin America, we have the greatest representation, and we were very fortunate that this year our host country was sold to Colombia. So Colombia is the host country, and the Colombia right now is one of the most popular
Yep.
tourist destinations in the world. They have amazing resources. They have fantastic people. Cities like Bogota, Medellin, Cartagena, they have so much to offer. And now that the situation in terms of all the political problems and social problems are better, the demand for travel to Colombia is just going through the roof. Like whenever we create programs, now we create programs all over the world, but whenever we go to Colombia, and you know that there's a lot of excitement because all the flights are packed, and they're not packed with locals. They're packed with American passengers.
Yeah,
Like
I wanna go. My wife and I were just talking about it. We wanna go visit. It's such an easy flight from Miami. We head on over. That'd be
it's
great.
it's amazing. It's a 3 hour flight, and there are 80 executives that are coming with the Colombian delegation. So they bought a large footprint at the show. They bought a 1,200 square foot booth,
Wow.
and they invited 80 executives from the hospitality industry in Colombia who are going to meet with different buyers in the United States. So hoteliers, restaurateurs, DMC owners, and all other, travel related businesses. They're all coming because they see that WT is the perfect platform to, open the doors for business in the US and in other parts of the world. So we're
That's
happy
great.
about that.
So
Yeah.
you mentioned a couple of groups of people that will be attending. Who should be attending this? Like when you envision this trade show, because now we're in year two, so you learned a lot from year one. Who should be attending and why should they be there?
Well, in general, every professional who is involved in the tourism and travel industry. And the reason is because we are, we have, we're very fortunate that we count with exhibitors in the airline field. For example, Avianca is our global airline partner. So they believe in the show. They've been with us since the beginning, and this year they bought the most important partnership that we sell, which is the global airline. So a lot of airlines are going to be here. You've got Spirit Airlines, you've got Iberia, you've got a lot of global airlines. All of those executives are going to be there, mainly because Miami is such an important travel hub.
Mm.
The port of Miami is is part of the show as well. So all the executives in the cruise world are welcome. We're gonna have the presence of Royal Caribbean. Lisa Lut of Perlo, who's one of our keynote speakers, she was the former CEO of Celebrity Cruise Lines. So, she's gonna be talking about a different topic more related to sports because now she's the CEO of the host committee for FIFA. But, a lot of people from the cruise lines are going to be there. And then of course hoteliers. Hotels are the heart of the hospitality industry, and we've got some major hotel chains like Meliá International, Hilton, Marriott, not only from the US but from all over the world. And like I said, there are hotels, private hotel chains that are coming from Colombia, from Mexico, and from other parts of Latin America, and definitely DMCs as well. So the DMCs are coming from the Middle East, they're coming from Asia. So everybody who's involved in travel and tourism and wants to learn about the trending topics, wants to meet people in the industry, new destinations, they're all welcome. And we're very happy as well that FIU, they're also partnering with our event. And a lot of the students are going to be working as interns at the show.
That's
So
great.
we're very excited about that. We believe that this show has a lot of future. Miami, like we said, is a major destination for travel in every sense. In by air, by water, by sea, whatever. It's a gateway to America, and it's a gateway to Latin America, and now even it's a gateway to Europe. So it's
Everywhere is being connected. We're connecting everywhere. So you've mentioned it. I'm pumped up. You got me excited. I'm so excited to be a part of year two and hopefully many more years to come. But if somebody wants to attend, what's the best way for them to do that?
the best way to attend the show is to register in www.wtmiami.com. Again, it's www.wtmiami.com. And another element that I want to highlight is our hosted buyer program. So, at the end of the day, every show is only relevant if the exhibitors and the buyers can perform business, can connect to create new business relationships. So, because of that, we have invested a lot in our hosted buyer program. So we have recruited buyers from the top MICE and leisure players at a global scale. And I do say at a global scale because we have hosted buyers that are coming all the way from Indonesia and Japan and China, as well as from the United States. And our hosted buyer is very complete. We cover the cost of travel. We cover the cost of their stay throughout the entire show, their meals, and of course, access to all the VIP events that are happening throughout the 3 days of the show.
Wow,
And
that's an
there are
big investment.
there yeah, there are amazing side events that each one of the sponsors is creating for the buyers and for all the other VIPs at the show. The experience itself of the show, we always try to create something memorable, something unique. because at the end of the day, we come from the event world, so we wanted to embark in this because we saw that we can create something that hasn't been seen in the travel and tourism world before. And I believe that we're achieving this little by little. And for this to be the second year, and to have the amount of registrations, the amount of exhibitors, and the amount of attendees that we expect is very exciting for us.
I'm very excited, and you got me really motivated last time we talked just about focusing on events and the power of events and connecting people. And I wanted to thank you for that live here, so everyone can hear that because you really were. He was being a mentor to me, right? On the hospitality mentor, he was mentoring me on a lot of things. So, Fernando, I appreciate that. But now,
Yes.
listen, we've talked about all these exciting things. I know this event's going to be a success, and we will continue to share that with our network. But if you were talking to young Fernando, I got my last question. You got young Fernando coming out of Georgia, just starting his career, and you could whisper in his ear today, what advice would you give young Fernando?
The advice that I would give young Fernando is to have a vision for the next 10 years and to work towards achieving small goals to achieve that target. And another very, very important advice is not to waste time. You know, I think that's the biggest mistake that we make. We don't understand that by being more effective every day, and imagine, like, even since you're in college, when you're in college, you don't have the maturity
Oh,
to start visualizing what you want to do. But if you're focused, if you really want to achieve something, you have to start working since you're young. Like in college, you spend a lot of time partying, a lot of time with your friends, when you can still do that. But instead of lounging in the couch and watching TV for several hours, you can study about a particular topic. You can start, uh, investing in whatever area you like, in real estate, in the stock market. But you can do that with no money, and you can do that, starting at a very young age. So I think that we waste a lot of time, and we could become a lot more efficient if we just, you know, understand that time is such a valuable resource, and it's such a finite resource. And when we're young, we don't realize this, but the older we get and the more stuff we have on our shoulders, because when you start growing, you become busier because you have a family, you have children, you have your business, you have employees, you have so many demands, and you have so limited time. But when you're young, you have less things on your shoulder and you have a lot of time. But if you organize yourself when you're young, by the time you get to our age, you're going to be very well lined for success. And you just need to know that there are 24 hours, and that 8 hours are for sleeping, and 8 hours are for working. And then the other 8 hours are for enjoying and growing yourself personally, and enjoying your family, exercising, etc. So I think I would tell Fernanda, listen, take advantage of your time in a much more effective way. And just continue to travel and explore, because I think that's what makes the difference. You need to learn the world, you need to enjoy cultures, and that's what's going to make you a more interesting person. It's going to make you, um, a more visionary person as well, because you get to see so many different cultures, ways of life, business opportunities that work in a particular area, or ideas of businesses that could work where you live. So you always need to be traveling. You always need to be curious. And like I said, that's the most important aspect of my life is curiosity. And I will never stop being curious, and never stop exploring other areas of opportunity, other people that I can meet. And that's what led me to you. So
it's true. I love that we connected all because of that. So, listeners, stay curious, right? I love that advice. I love what you share with us today. Fernando, I know how busy you are because you do have that show coming up and you're going to make it amazing for all of us attending. But I truly appreciate you spending this time with us today.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate the opportunity and thank you for being a strategic partner and advisor to WT, not only to WT, but also to Agency B. So,
I'm here for you.
yeah, we're at the beginning of a great friendship, you and I, and a great partnership.
We are, and I'm excited to be there. So, hey, listeners, again, I'm going to remind you because we'll be there. Make sure to sign up and get your tickets. We'll have the link here in the section below, and we'll talk to you soon.